Ever wonder if crime actually serves a purpose?
Wow.
We're going to be diving deep today
Okay.
into functionalist criminology,
Yeah.
which is a theory that suggests that crime may not just be a problem, but also potentially a solution.
It might sound a little crazy at first,
Yeah.
but the core idea is that society is like this big, intricate machine
Okay.
where every single part, even the seemingly bad ones like crime,
Right.
they actually play a role in keeping the whole thing running smoothly.
So let's unpack that a little bit today.
Yeah,
We'll be exploring some pretty groundbreaking ideas from the giants of sociology,
for sure.
like Durkheim
Yes,
and Merton,
absolutely.
and you might be surprised at what they have to say
Yeah,
about why crime exists and what it tells us about society itself.
absolutely. One of the most radical thinkers in this whole field is Emil Durkheim.
Oh, wow.
And he argued that a society completely without crime is not only impossible,
Okay.
but could even be unhealthy.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Are we really saying that breaking the rules can actually be beneficial
I know, right?
for society? I'm going to need to hear more about this.
Yeah, so Durkheim's logic rests on a few ideas.
Okay.
First off, he says it's just human nature.
Right.
Not everyone's going to perfectly follow all of society's rules all the time.
Yeah, makes sense.
So some level of deviance is kind of inevitable,
We're all different,
right?
and sometimes we step outside the lines.
Exactly. And this is where it gets interesting.
Okay.
Durkheim argues that crime actually helps to solidify social norms.
Oh.
So when someone breaks a rule,
Okay.
it's like this giant spotlight shines on what's acceptable for everyone else.
Right.
It reinforces those boundaries and strengthens our social cohesion.
So are we saying that by punishing crime, we're actually bringing everybody closer together?
Think of it this way.
Okay.
Imagine a world where even like the tiniest rule breaking
Yes.
sends everyone into a frenzy.
Right.
That would be chaos.
Yeah, total chaos.
So we need a certain level of deviance, a little bit of rule
a
breaking,
little bit.
just to function as a society.
Wow. So a little crime actually acts like a kind of social glue.
According to Durkheim, yeah, of
Yeah,
course.
right.
This doesn't mean we should be encouraging crime,
Right. Of course not.
but it does suggest that crime serves a purpose
Okay.
beyond just being this negative thing,
So we've got this idea that crime can actually be functional
right?
in this kind of weird way.
Yeah.
But why do people actually commit crimes in the first place?
That's where Robert Merton comes in.
Okay.
And his strain theory,
Okay.
which is a really powerful explanation for why people might choose a criminal path.
I'm all ears.
All right.
Give me the strain theory.
Merton's theory is all about the American dream.
Mhm.
He argued that American society puts this huge emphasis on achieving success,
Right.
usually financial success.
Right.
But the problem is not everyone has equal access to the resources
Of course not.
and opportunities
Yeah.
needed to actually achieve that dream.
Yeah. So it's like everyone's told to climb this ladder of success,
Yeah,
but some people are starting on the ground floor while others are already halfway up.
exactly. And that difference creates a ton of strain.
Makes sense.
People feel this pressure to succeed,
Yeah.
but they lack the means to do it legitimately,
Right.
which can lead some individuals to turn to crime
Okay.
as an alternative way to reach those culturally promoted goals.
So remember that word strain.
Yes,
Because it's at the heart of understanding why some people turn to crime.
absolutely.
It's not just about individual choices.
No.
It's about the pressure cooker
Yeah.
of societal expectations.
It's a really compelling argument.
It is.
And Merton outlined 5 different ways
Okay.
that people respond to this strain.
Okay.
Some are more deviant than others.
Got it.
The first one is conformity,
Okay.
which is like the most traditional route.
Okay.
It means going after success using acceptable means,
Right.
working hard, playing by the rules,
Yep.
even if it's a tough climb.
So think of it like, working hard,
Yeah.
getting that promotion, climbing the corporate ladder,
Right.
the classic path to success,
No,
even if it's an uphill battle.
exactly.
What are the other responses?
Well, when those traditional paths are blocked,
Okay.
that's when things get interesting.
Right.
Merton suggests that people might turn to other adaptations,
Mm-hmm.
some of which can be seen as deviant.
Okay.
One is innovation.
Okay.
This is where someone uses criminal activity as their means to achieve success.
So instead of working their way up the corporate ladder,
Yeah.
they might turn to, say, selling drugs or embezzling money to get rich.
Right.
They're still aiming for that goal,
Yeah.
but through illegal means.
Exactly.
Interesting.
So what are the other 3?
The next one is ritualism.
Okay.
And here, individuals have kind of given up on actually reaching that big goal of success,
Right.
but they still go through the motions of the prescribed means to achieve it.
So imagine someone stuck in a dead-end job,
Right.
not really expecting to get ahead, but also not making any waves.
So they've resigned themselves to a life where they're just going through the motions,
Yeah.
following the rules, without any real hope of achieving the dream.
Yeah, it's almost like a quiet desperation.
Yeah, it is. What about the final two?
The fourth response, retreatism, is even more extreme.
Okay.
This is when individuals reject both the goal and the means to achieve it.
Okay.
And they essentially withdraw from society altogether.
So we're talking about people who have completely dropped out
Yeah.
of the race.
Right.
Like those who turn to drug addiction or become homeless.
Right.
That's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
What's the last one?
The final response is rebellion.
Oh,
And it's the most active form of adaptation.
okay.
Rebels not only reject the existing goals and means, but they actively work to replace them with entirely new ones.
So they're the revolutionaries, the
Yeah.
activists, the ones trying to tear down the old system and build something new.
Exactly.
Okay.
So Merton's strain theory really gives us a framework
Yeah.
to understand why people might choose different paths,
Right.
some criminal, some not,
Right.
based on their circumstances,
Yeah.
and how they respond to the pressures that society puts on them.
That's really insightful.
Yeah.
But how does this idea of strain actually pour out in different communities?
Right.
Does everybody experience this pressure to succeed in the same way?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And it leads us to the concept of subcultures.
Okay.
Albert Cohen, building on Merton's work,
Okay.
focused on how status frustration,
Hmm.
which is another really important term,
Got it.
can fuel criminal behavior within these subcultures.
Let's dive into that.
Okay.
What exactly is status frustration?
So Cohen was particularly interested in young working-class males.
Okay.
And he argued that they often experience this status frustration
Hmm.
because they're denied status in mainstream society.
They feel like they're failing
Yeah.
because they can't live up to those middle class values and expectations.
So they're stuck in a system that's constantly telling them they're not good enough.
Yeah, and to gain that status,
Right.
to push back against this feeling of being a failure,
Okay.
they create their own subcultures, their own sets of rules.
Right.
And in these subcultures, criminal behavior can actually become something that earns you respect.
Mm.
It's a way to gain recognition and kind of strike back at the system
Yeah.
that's been shutting them out.
So the rules get flipped.
Yeah.
What's considered bad in mainstream society
Right.
might actually be good in the subculture. It's like
good.
those teenage cliques where rebelling against authority is the coolest thing you can do.
Yeah.
A small-scale version of the same dynamic.
Exactly. Within these subcultures, things like vandalism, theft, or fighting
Right.
can become a way for these young men to gain recognition and feel like they belong. It's amazing how social environments can shape behavior
It really is.
in such a powerful way.
Yeah.
But why do we see so many different types of criminal subcultures?
Mm.
Why are some focused on violence,
Right.
while others are more about theft
Yeah.
or drug use?
That's what Richard Cloward and Lloyd Olin tackled
Okay.
with their opportunity structures theory.
Okay.
They expanded on strain theory, arguing that the type of crime that's most common in a community is directly tied to the illegal opportunities that are available.
So it's not just about feeling strained.
Right.
It's also about access.
Exactly. If a community has a well-established criminal underworld,
Okay.
young people are more likely to be drawn into that type of crime. They'll have mentors, role models who can teach them the ropes.
Right.
Cloward and Olin call this a criminal subculture.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
If you grow up around successful criminals,
Right.
that path might seem much more attainable
Yeah.
than trying to succeed in a legitimate world. That's already shown you the door.
Yeah.
What about the other types of criminal subcultures?
Right. In communities where crime is less organized,
Okay.
but there's still a lot of social disorganization,
Right.
you're more likely to see conflict subcultures emerge.
Okay.
These are characterized by gang violence and turf wars.
So it's a more chaotic and unpredictable form of criminal behavior
Yeah.
driven by a need for power and respect
Yeah.
within a very specific and limited context.
Exactly.
What about the last type?
The last type is retreatist subcultures.
Okay.
And these form among those who haven't been able to find success in either the legitimate or the criminal world.
Right.
these individuals often turn to drug use and withdraw from society entirely.
It's like they've fallen through the cracks of both worlds,
Yeah,
unable to find a place for themselves anywhere.
exactly.
Cloward and Olin's work really makes you think
It does.
about how much our environment shapes our behavior, criminal or not.
Yeah.
It raises a big question.
Yeah. A huge question.
Does the environment shape criminal behavior more than individual choices?
That's a question that has sparked endless debate.
Yeah.
But not all functionalist criminologists focus on strain and subcultures.
Okay.
So let's shift gears
Right.
and talk about Travis Hershey,
Okay.
who took a very different approach.
I'm ready for a new perspective.
All right.
So
go.
what did Hershey have to say?
He decided to kind of flip the script. Instead of asking, why do people commit crimes? He asked, why don't they?
That's a clever way to look at it.
Right.
What was his answer?
His theory is called social bonds theory.
Okay.
And it argues that strong social bonds to family, school, community,
Right.
these are like anchors keeping us grounded
Yeah.
and preventing us from drifting into criminal activity.
So the stronger your ties to these positive parts of life,
Right.
the less likely you are to stray
Yeah,
into criminal behavior.
exactly.
That's pretty intuitive, right?
It is. But if those bonds are weak,
Okay.
it's like you have less to lose,
Right.
which makes engaging in crime more likely.
I see.
Think about the people and the institutions that are most important in your life.
Yeah.
How might those relationships be unconsciously influencing the choices you make every single day?
Wow, that's deep.
Yeah.
I got to think about that one for a minute.
Yeah.
But we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
From Durkheim's idea of crime as social glue
Yeah.
to Merton's strain theory and Cohen's focus on subcultures.
Right.
It's like functionalist criminology is saying that crime isn't just some random act of individual deviance.
No.
It's woven into the fabric of society itself.
It really is a thought-provoking way to look at crime.
It is.
It challenges us to look beyond simply punishing individuals.
Okay.
And to really consider the broader social forces at play.
I'm ready to keep exploring.
Okay.
What else can you tell me
Great.
about the strengths and weaknesses of this approach?
Okay.
Where does it shine? Yeah. And where does it fall short?
So,
Yeah.
so one of the biggest strengths, I think, of the functionalist approach
Okay.
is that it forces us to kind of zoom out and look at the bigger picture.
Right.
It helps us understand how crime, even with all of its negative consequences,
Right.
can actually play a role in keeping society stable.
It definitely challenges our assumptions.
Yeah.
We tend to think of crime as purely bad,
Right.
but functionalism suggests it might have
Yeah,
a more complex role.
exactly. And another strength is that functionalist theories
Okay.
generally avoid saying that criminals are simply like born that way
Okay.
or that it all comes down to just individual choice.
Right.
They're not as deterministic as some other explanations for crime.
So they're acknowledging that there are social structures and pressures that can contribute to someone ending up on that criminal path.
Right. They recognize that crime often emerges from the way society is organized,
Okay.
not just from personal flaws.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But what about the weaknesses?
Of course.
There have to be some criticisms of this whole functionalist approach.
Right. One common criticism is that functionalism can sometimes get so focused on the potential positive functions of crime that it doesn't really pay enough attention to the actual harm it causes.
Right.
It can almost sound like they're saying crime's a good thing,
Right.
which obviously isn't true.
Yeah, it's a tricky balance.
It is.
How do you acknowledge that crime might have
Right.
some unintended benefits
Yeah.
without downplaying
Right.
the very real negative impact
Exactly.
it has on individuals and communities?
Exactly. Another weakness is that functionalist theories often struggle to explain why certain groups are more likely to commit crimes than others.
Okay.
They don't fully address the issues of power and inequality
Right.
that exist in society.
So while they recognize that social structures influence crime,
Yeah.
they don't always dig deep enough
Yeah.
into how those very structures can be inherently unfair or discriminatory.
That's right. And some critics also argue that functionalism
Okay.
can be a bit too simplistic in its view of society. It tends to treat society like this harmonious machine,
Right.
when in reality there are often conflicts and power struggles
Oh, of course.
happening all the time.
Yeah, it's like they're trying to fit a square peg in a round hole
Yeah.
using a model that might be too neat and tidy.
Yeah.
to explain the messy reality
Oh, is it
of social dynamics.
Yes. And lastly, some critics point out that functionalism
Right.
can sometimes unintentionally lead to
Okay.
a kind of victim blaming.
Oh.
If crime is primarily a product of social structures, it's easy to just say that individuals are simply responding to the pressures they face.
Right.
But that can overlook the real choices people make and the harm they inflict on others.
So while it's essential to understand the social context of crime, it's also crucial to hold individuals accountable for their actions.
For sure. It's a complex issue.
It is.
It definitely is. Now, it's worth taking a closer look at some of the specific criticisms leveled at the individual theories we've been discussing. For example, with Durkheim. One of the main issues is that he doesn't really provide a way to measure how much crime is actually functional for society versus how much is just plain harmful.
It's a good point.
Yeah.
He says a society without crime is impossible.
Right.
But where's the line?
Right.
When does crime cross over from being beneficial to detrimental?
Yeah.
He doesn't give us a clear way to figure that out.
And he also doesn't differentiate between different types of crime.
Right.
Surely a violent crime like murder has very different consequences for society.
Of course.
Than, say, jaywalking.
Right. Not all crimes are created equal.
Exactly. Now, when it comes to Merton's strain theory, one criticism is that it has a hard time explaining crimes that aren't driven by economic gain, like crimes of passion or vandalism.
Right. It seems like his theory is very focused on that pursuit of the American dream, which is often equated with material success.
You got it. And Merton doesn't really address the issue of white-collar crime, which can be just as harmful, if not more so, than street crime.
It's like his theory primarily focuses on one slice of the criminal landscape, but neglects these other important aspects.
That's one way to look at it.
Yeah.
Now, Cohen's theory, while insightful, also has its limitations. It primarily focuses on young working-class males, which obviously leaves out a lot of other potential offenders.
It's a very specific demographic.
It is.
And it doesn't account for crimes committed by women.
Right.
People from different social classes, different age groups.
Right. And by zeroing in on subcultures, he kind of misses the fact that many crimes are committed by individuals who are actually well integrated into mainstream society.
Like those white-collar criminals we talked about.
Right.
Or corrupt politicians.
Exactly.
They're not acting out of status frustration.
Right.
They're abusing their positions of power for personal gain.
Exactly. Now, with Cloward and Olin, one critique is that there are three categories of subcultures. Criminal conflict and retreatists are a bit too rigid. In reality, there's a lot of overlap between those types.
It's like they're trying to put human behavior into these neat little boxes. When in reality, it's much more fluid and complex than that.
And finally, with Hershey's social bonds theory, one criticism is that it can sometimes be perceived as blaming the victim.
How so?
It suggests that people who commit crimes simply lack strong social bonds.
Right.
But it doesn't always consider the factors that might have weakened those bonds in the first place.
So while it emphasizes the importance of social connections, it doesn't necessarily address the systemic issues that might be preventing people from forming those connections in the first place.
Exactly. For instance, someone who grew up in poverty or experienced significant trauma.
Of course.
Might have had their social bonds disrupted through no fault of their own.
Yeah. Those experiences have a huge impact on people's lives.
It's a good reminder that our individual choices are often shaped by forces that are largely beyond our control.
It's a really important point.
It is now, even with these limitations. It's important to recognize that functionalist theories have made significant contributions to how we understand crime. They've shown us that crime isn't just this random act of individual deviance, but a complex social phenomenon with deep roots in the very structure of society.
There's a perspective that encourages us to dig deeper. To look beyond the surface and consider the underlying causes of crime, which is critical if we truly want to find effective solutions.
Absolutely. And you know what's really interesting?
Spill the beans.
Well, even though functionalism has faced its share of criticism, it's still influencing how criminologists think today.
So it's not just some dusty old theory.
No.
It's still shaping how we approach crime right now.
Absolutely. For instance, a lot of crime prevention programs are all about strengthening social bonds, giving young people positive role models, getting them involved in their communities, helping them feel like they belong.
It's like taking Hershey's theory and putting it into action.
Exactly.
Creating those anchors that can keep individuals from drifting toward a life of crime.
Exactly. And even though Merton's strain theory was developed decades ago, it's still incredibly relevant for understanding how things like economic inequality and lack of opportunity can contribute to crime.
It's a powerful reminder.
It is.
That social factors play a huge role in shaping individual behavior.
And that's one of the key takeaways from functionalist criminology. It forces us to look beyond those individual choices and consider that bigger social context surrounding criminal activity.
So we're not just pointing fingers at individuals. No. We're also looking at the systems and structures that might be contributing to the problem.
Exactly. And this means that we can start thinking about crime prevention in a whole new way. It's not just about punishment. It's about creating a society where people have genuine opportunities to succeed.
It's a society that's more equitable.
Yeah.
And it sounds like functionalism gives us a lot to think about.
I think so.
Both in terms of understanding the causes of crime. And exploring new approaches to prevention.
For sure. But while functionalism offers valuable insights, it's important to remember that it's just one piece of the puzzle.
Of course.
There are many other theories about crime, each with their own strengths and weaknesses, and understanding them all helps us see the bigger picture.
The bigger picture.
Even more clearly.
So we need to keep an open mind.
Yes.
And explore different perspectives.
Absolutely.
What are some of those other theories?
Well, for example, there are conflict theories.
Okay.
And these challenge the very foundations of functionalism.
Okay.
They argue that crime isn't a function of social disorganization, but rather a product of the inherent inequalities that exist in societies, especially capitalist societies.
So instead of seeing crime as a way to maintain social order, conflict theorists view it as a rebellion against a system that's rigged against certain groups.
Exactly. And they would argue that simply strengthening social bonds or providing opportunities within the existing system isn't enough. Real change requires addressing those fundamental inequalities.
Wow, that's a very different lens to view crime through.
It is.
It sounds like there's a whole world of criminological theories out there.
There is.
Just waiting to be explored.
There absolutely is, and that's what makes this field so fascinating.
Yeah.
It's constantly evolving.
And
there's always more to learn and consider.
Well, you've definitely given me a lot to think about today.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
I'm going to have to dive into some of these other theories and see where they lead.
That's the spirit.
Yeah.
Keep asking questions. Keep exploring.
I will.
And you'll be amazed at what you discover.
Thanks for taking me on this deep dive.
You're very welcome.
It's been an eye-opening journey.
Good.
And to all of our listeners out there, if you're intrigued by these ideas, remember, this is just the beginning.
Absolutely.
There's a whole universe of criminological theories out there. Each offering its own unique perspective on this complex issue.
It is a complex issue.
So keep learning, keep questioning,
Absolutely.
and keep diving deep.
That's it. That's it.